Hi, welcome to Chapter 3 slash Episode 3 of Small Talk with Shania. I have to start off this episode by telling you guys that I love you. I do. I really do. I love you. And I'm just in such a lovey-dovey, happy mood right now, probably because it is the month of love. It is February. It is almost Valentine's Day. And you guys know I am a hopeless romantic to my core. It is just who I am as a human being, okay? I love love. I love romance books. I love romance movies. I love love songs. Anything that has to do with love. I love it, okay? And I love you guys. So thank you for always tuning in every week and for watching and for listening. I love you guys and I appreciate you. And we have so many books that we need to talk about today. Speaking of love, obviously, I'm very festive, by the way. Change the lights to pink. I'm having a pink shirt on that says love. It's just, we're feeling it, okay? We're vibing right now. Anyways, we have a lot of book recommendations that we need to talk about today, okay? I'm going to give you guys some of my top book recommendations when it comes to romance and making you feel kind of nostalgic for when you first fell in love with someone and you have that warm, gushy feeling inside and you just want to kick your feet and giggle. These books make you feel that way. And we need to discuss them. I want to tell you all about why I love them, what makes a good romance book to me. Everyone has their own opinions as far as like what they like in romance books, and I think that's so important because obviously reading is so objective, and someone might enjoy a book because it resonates with them differently, maybe from a story or an experience, their own love stories, maybe they picture themselves as the main character, whatever it is. Everyone has different criteria that they follow when it comes to books and how their reading experience is. So, I'm going to tell you about what makes a good romance book to me and what makes it special to me, and why all of these books that I'm going to talk about are so special to me as well. And why I think that you would enjoy them if you haven't already read them, why you should, or if you've already read them, maybe you should consider rereading them as well. I think that that's something that we need to do this year. Like I said, this is the year of rereads. So if you've read any of the books that I'm about to mention, definitely think about giving them a reread or listening to them on audio. I think most of the books that I'm going to talk about today are on audiobooks. So just keep that in mind as well. I think that's really important. And some of the books that I'm going to mention have some of my absolute favorite top tier book boyfriends in them as well. So, very, very special episode. We're just going to be talking about all the things that I love. And I think that let's start with what makes a romance book good to me. Kind of what I look for when I'm reading a romance book, okay? I rate, my rating scale and how I rate books from a 1 to 5, that's completely different. That's for a whole other time. But as far as romance, I'm predominantly a romance reader. I don't know about most of you guys who are listening or who watch my videos or anything. I think most of you are romance people, but I predominantly read romance, especially if I'm reading like fantasy or something. It has to be romantasy, otherwise the whole plot is lost upon me, and there needs to be a romance element, okay? So when I say romance, I mean true love story, okay? And that brings me to my very first point. If I'm reading a romance book, it absolutely 100% needs a happily ever after. It's a deal breaker, okay? If it doesn't have a happily ever after, it's automatically a no for me, okay? Needs to have a happily ever after. I'm not reading a book for 400 plus pages about this couple and I've gotten so attached to them and I now am like a person in their world rooting for them just for them not to be together at the end or for one of them to die or something, okay? Has to have a happily ever after. It's a non negotiable. I think most of us can pretty much agree with that. But I can't even freaking tell you the last time I have read a romance book where they didn't have a happily ever after. I'm really trying to think. And I think the only book that they didn't, when I read like maybe A Fault in Our Stars when I was younger, like in high school, college time, and that was devastating to me. Loved the book. It was amazing at the time. Loved the movie. not a happily ever after. Spoiler alert if you haven't read that book or seen the movie. It's not a happily ever after. If that was me reading it now, oh, forget it. Absolutely not. Oh, another one was like the Divergent series. Don't even get me started. Okay, I'm going on a tangent. Next, I need the chemistry to be off the charts, okay? I need the MMC and the FMC to be so insanely obsessed with each other that I almost get a secondhand embarrassment in a good way from reading them through the book. Do you know what I mean? I need it to be so incredibly clear that the MMC literally worships the floor that the FMC walks on. Did I say that right? Yes. I want the MMC to worship the floor that the FMC walks on. Okay? It is so important to me that the MMC, and for those, I got a comment the other day on one of my videos of someone saying that they didn't know what MMC and FMC was, and I'm so sorry. It means main male character, and then FMC is female main character. There's a lot of lingo in the book world, and there's a lot of different acronyms, and there's a lot of different abbreviations and things. So I'm so sorry if anyone ever gets confused with that kind of stuff. But yeah, someone left me a comment the other day, and I wanted to make sure that I cleared that up because I want you guys to listen and understand all the lingo that we're saying. But anyways, I need the chemistry to be off the charts, okay? I don't need them to be clearly telling each other every chapter and every page, I love you and I feel this way about you. That's not compelling to me. They need to show it. They need to say little things here and there. And I just need to feel it. You know, that's one reason why I don't really like reading the bully romances. I talked about that a little bit before. I need to know, not only do you love them, and not only are you in love with them, but you like them and love them as a person and a human being, okay? That's what I mean when I say the chemistry. It's like I need to know that you love them for all these different reasons and you're obsessed with them and they're your love interest, but like I need to feel connected to you guys and have chemistry and feel the chemistry between you two as humans and as people. I need to know that you love each other as humans first. It's probably a little bit dramatic seeing that we're talking about fictional characters and referring to them as real people, but you get it. That's besides the point. So I need the chemistry to be off the charts, okay? That's a non-negotiable as well. And I need the tension and the longing to be tensioning and longing, okay? I need, and this is a very important thing to say as well. A book does not need spice in it to make it good, okay? A romance book in particular, a romance book does not need spice in it as long as it has the tension and the longing that makes up for it and the chemistry. If it has all three of those things, tension, longing, chemistry, you don't even need the spice for it, okay? You can have a book that has little to no spice at all. As long as it has those three elements to it, it's a great romance book, okay? And even if it's like a playful tension, it doesn't, I know we're not really talking about like dark romance or anything. That's a whole other genre. That's a whole other type of tension that I won't even get into. But I need to feel the characters having a sense of like, oh, it's so wrong, but it's so right. And I need them to have a longing for each other that they just can't stay away from each other. And I need the chemistry to be there. And if it has that, I don't need any spice in it, quite frankly. That's all I need in a romance book. It's gonna make it like a 5 star for me as long as it hits all three of those things. To be honest, that's how I get connected and like obsessed with the characters. So that's really really important. The tension needs to be tensioning. The longing needs to be longing. I also need to feel. This kind of goes in line with everything that I just said, but I need to feel the love dripping off of every single page. When I say that, I mean that I need to be giggling, I need to be kicking my feet, I need to be squealing, and I need to feel almost as though I am a side character in this fictional world. Like I am one of their friends and I'm living in their story. You know what I mean? I'm kind of like a secondhand person watching from afar. Maybe I'm like looking in through a window or watching them at a coffee shop scene or something. I need to feel as though I'm there and feel that romance and that love dripping off the page as though it was a real situation that I'm watching in real life. One of my favorite things is like when I go out to dinner or like go on a date with my husband and we're out and we see people who are clearly on a date or who are clearly like maybe new in a relationship or something, and it's very clear that they're like in the early stages of love and in their relationship. I love to be that person who's kind of like an outsider watching this love story untangle and watching this love story blossom. And that's how I want to feel when I read a book, especially a romance book, anything that has to do with romance and falling in love, whether it's romantic, whatever it is. I need to feel that. And I think as long as I feel that in a book, I'm going to get connected to the characters. Like I said before, I'm going to feel a sense of closeness and connection to them. And I'm going to feel some type of like relatability, I guess. It really makes the people feel more alive and more real to me. And it makes the world feel real to me. Obviously, I need a delicious MMC. If the MMC in the book is anything short of delicious or anything short of just, like I said, being completely obsessed with the FMC and worshiping the floor that she walks upon, I don't want it, okay? I recently just read a book. What was it? If This Was a Movie by Morgan Elizabeth, I believe. I'm looking for it. Yeah. I recently just read that book the other day. And the best part about that book, it was a cute little rom-com. It was like a Christmassy rom-com thing. The best part about the book was the MMC. I'm not even kidding you. That book would not have been the same if it was not including this particular MMC. They had like a one night stand type of thing one time, and then they kind of get rekindled and whatever, and she lives with him for a little bit. And when she comes back into his life, this man is so down bad for her that he buys every single TV subscription, anything that she can binge and stream. He buys it all for her so she can watch whatever she wants. He literally goes above and beyond, gets all these different foods. He remembers the different foods that she likes. And remember, they spent like 1 or 2 nights with each other, and he remembers her favorite foods, her favorite breakfasts, her favorite everything, and he does it for her. And like I said, it was just a cute little rom-com, but this MMC made it so much better. And he made the whole love story come to life. And that is what I want with an MMC in a book. They don't necessarily have to be, the golden retriever type of character either. They can be morally gray. Some of the books I'm going to mention today have morally gray characters, but are still that type of MMC that is so abundantly clear that he's obsessed with her, that he would do anything for her. And that's what I mean when I say I need a delicious MMC in a romance book. And I also, bonus points, this one's not necessary, but if it has it, it's great. And that is if it makes me cry. I'm not a crier when it comes to books. I'm really not. But every once in a while, the book doesn't even have to have something sad happen in it. It doesn't have to have something like traumatic or, heartbreaking happen in the book for me to cry. Sometimes you just want to cry because you feel the love is so intense and you feel the romance is so intense and you feel just so overwhelmed with emotion. And like I said, you kind of feel like you're that character on the side watching this whole thing happen, and you can't help but get emotional from it, okay? And that's what I mean by that. Bonus points if it makes me cry. It's very difficult for a book to make me cry, so that's why I say it's bonus points. But some of the ones I'm going to talk about today, they've made me cry. So they must be really, really good, okay? So those are kind of the things that make a good romance book for me. Everyone's different. I need to know if you guys feel the same way about any of the things that I've said. Obviously, there are a lot of other elements and things, but those are predominantly the things that I look for. And it's like, if a romance book doesn't have those things, then like, well, what the hell are you doing? So let's go on to all of the books I'm going to talk about today and my top romance book recommendations for the month of love. These books, I'm telling you, are going to make you fall in love with love. It's going to make you feel so nostalgic when you read them. Some of them are spicy, some of them are not. And like I said, they don't need to have spice, but hey, if it does, that's great as long as it's written right. But if it doesn't, the tension and the longing are there as well. The characters are going to be amazing. You're going to fall in love with their stories. You're going to miss the characters after you're done reading it. And that's something that's really important to me too. I didn't even mention that before, but that's another thing that makes a love story good for me is if I miss the characters after I'm done reading the book. Oh, that happens so often where I'm done reading a book and I'm just like, oh, I miss the characters. I miss having them in my life as if they're really real. Anyway, so we'll start with our first book. Some of these are going to be repeats of what like I always talk about, but obviously I love them, so I need to talk about them, and they're the perfect romance books. So number one is Love in Other Words by 𝓢𝓸𝓷𝓷𝓮𝓬𝓬𝓭. This is a book that is, it's a childhood friends to lovers. However, it's kind of, there's a time gap where they are teenagers and then they kind of rediscover each other and rekindle when they get older, essentially. So they kind of get, torn apart, not torn apart, but they lose touch, essentially. Let's just say there. I'm not going to give any spoilers for any of these books, by the way. I'm going to try and be as vague as possible, and just kind of give you the overall lore and, the tropes and things. But childhood friends to lovers, they lose touch for a very long time for miscellaneous reasons that you'll read about. And then they rekindle, they see each other again, and the book goes from the past and it kind of shows you their journey from when they were little and how they grew up together and how they fell in love when they were little and their whole story up until the point that we are now where it starts and it's them finding out about each other again. They're in different parts of their lives right now, seeing different people, and they have a lot going on. And it's basically a book of kind of rediscovery, unveiling a lot of truths, a lot of hard and tough truths to go through and, hard pills to swallow. But it's also about, forgiveness, and it's a lot about clarity and just showing up for someone when they most need it. And most of all, it's just about how to fall in love again. And it's showing really how your first love is always going to be your first love, essentially. This is a book that just gives me chills every single time I talk about it. I can't help but feel nostalgic when I read it, not for any reason of like I can relate to it or it's a relatable story to me. That's not what I mean at all. What I mean is like the way that 𝓢𝓸𝓷𝓷𝓮𝓬𝓬𝓭 writes this book is in a way that kind of feels like they're writing about your first time falling in love with someone. And that to me is just so beautiful. I can't wait to reread this book because I just know how it made me feel the first time I read it, and I can't wait for it to make me feel the same way again when I reread it. So I'm just so excited to reread it and see the characters again, read the characters, read about them again. But yeah, Love in Other Words is such a great one. Obviously, it says love, it's a lovey-dovey book, and there's some, harder parts to read as well. It's not all happy and, sunshine rainbows, but that's another thing that makes a romance book so good. So if you haven't read that book for quite some time or you've never read it before, definitely give it a go. It's one of my favorite books of all time. I think it's probably the number one spot for my favorite book ever. So, and Elliot, the MMC in it, is so good. He's so delicious. He's so like golden retriever vibes. He's literally the best. I just love him so much. He makes the whole book. So, Love in Other Words is such a great one. While we're talking about book boyfriends and golden retrievers, Archer's Voice. Ugh. And I want to preface this by saying anything really by Mia Sheridan is a fantastic romance read. Archer's Voice is my favorite by her, at least, so far. I haven't read every single one of her books, but I've read that one and it's up there. That's another one that's like right under Love in Other Words. Archer's Voice is, how do I even explain this book without giving it away? I think the town is called Pelion Lake or something like that. Very small town romance vibes. It is all small town romance. This FMC Bree, she has to move to this town because she has somewhat of a darker past, and she's trying to escape, her past town and her traumas and things that she's gone through, and she's trying to find somewhat of a peace, and she's just trying to kind of start over and get away from all the stuff that she has gone through in her past. And she comes upon this small little town and starts meeting people, gets a job at the diner, and runs into this boy. I think they were like at the convenience store or something, and they end up bumping into each other. And she says hello to him, and he doesn't say hello to her back. She's like, "All right, it's a little bit rude, you not to talk to me, but okay." Um, but it's like that little meet cute moment where it's kind of that instant vibe where they feel some type of connection with each other, but it's also very awkward because, again, she tried to talk to him and he just kind of blew her off and walked away. And she finds out that he actually doesn't speak, and we don't know why. You'll read more about, his journey and everything in the book and stuff and what happened to him, but he essentially does not speak, and the way that they communicate is through sign language. She just so happens to know sign language from something in her past. I forget why, but it's a beautiful story of two people who come from very different situations, but also very similar situations, and use their trauma and use a lot of their stuff that they've gone through to bond and fall in love. And they find their own unique ways of communicating, and they're really each other's safe havens. And that's what makes the story so beautiful and so compelling, is that, in this world of trauma that they've lived and in this craziness, they truly are each other's saving graces. They are each other's places to go for happiness, and they really learn how to be that for one another. They learn how to be the strength for one of another. And it's a lot of teaching each other too. I love when a character teaches another character, whether it's the MMC to the FMC or the other way around. In this case, she teaches him a lot, especially when it comes to relationships. So it's a really unique situation to read about. So good. Perfect if you're a hopeless romantic. It does take you down quite a bit of an emotional roller coaster, but I will tell you right now, it is the best. You need to read it. I'm not going to spoil anything. Moving on. Out on a Limb by Hannah Bonin Young. This was one of my favorite reads of last year in 2024. This, I said, just felt like a warm hug. It really does. I have no other way to describe it other than it just feels like a warm hug. And the two characters are so incredibly sweet. They both are people who have uniquenesses to them. They meet at a party, a Halloween party, and they end up having a one night stand with each other. This is not any spoiling anything for you guys. It's pretty apparent when you read even the back of the book what's happening. They meet each other at a party for the very first time, by mutual friends. They instantly notice that they both share something in common with each other, and that is that they both have disabilities, and they bond over that. And obviously, it doesn't make them any different. They just finally have, meet someone who's somewhat like them, and they can kind of joke with them and talk to them about, these different things. And hey, while you're at it, you got some drinks flowing, you're at a party, feeling good, having a nice time, and one thing leads to another. And like I said, they end up having a one night stand, and then something happens from that one night stand where they are inevitably bonded for life, essentially, and have a common link that they are going to be in each other's lives for forever. And they have to navigate that and see how they're going to fit in each other's lives, and if they can fit in each other's lives, and if so, how. And there's a lot of different things that they have to work out in between, but it's such a beautiful story. I will say there's not a ton of conflict in this story, which I think is another reason why I love it so much, because typically when you're reading some type of love story like Archer's Voice or Love in Other Words, there's so much like conflict, and there's so many things that build up, and it's almost like okay, enough. Like, I don't want anything bad to happen. Like, let's just have a nice little love story. Let's just have you guys fall in love and that's it, you know? And that's what's cool about Out on a Limb because there's obviously one main conflict and a couple of other things within the story. However, that is really the only conflict. So you have a pretty standard go with the flow romance story. So it's really really great. And you know that there's going to be, an initial solution for this. So really, really great book, especially if you're a hopeless romantic. Definitely recommend that you read it. Really short as well. I think that you can probably get it done in like one or two sittings. Definitely recommend. Perfect for all of my hopeless romantics out there. Moving on to a couple books that are a little bit more on the fun side. We've kind of gone over more of the like more modern romances that have a little bit more of a serious tone to them and are very classic love stories. The next ones I'm going to talk about are a little bit more fun, flirty, and are just going to make you feel like you're going to have a fun time with these characters, but you're also going to fall in love with them and you're going to enjoy their love stories as well. This one's a little bit broad, but absolutely anything by Megan Quinn. Okay. She writes some of the most amazing romantic comedy books ever. I specifically want to talk about the Kane Brothers series and also the Vancouver Agitator series. Both of them are so delicious. I love both of them so, so much. They're both on audiobook as well, and the audiobooks are phenomenal. So, so good. The Kane Brothers series, that's the first series I actually read by Megan Quinn. Yeah, it's a Not So Meet Cute. What is the other one? Sorry, I'm drawing a blank now. What are they called? Oh, A Not So Meet Cute, So Not Meant to Be, and A Long Time Coming. I had to cheat and look at them over there. Those are the three books in the Kane Brothers series. It follows Huxley, JP, and Breaker Kane. Those are the three like main male characters, and basically it's about them and them falling in love, and it's just the most amazing banter that you will read. The way that Megan Quinn writes her banter is just so incredibly enticing and makes you feel so giddy. And it's like you're watching a real life conversation and like argument slash like little spat that these couples are having. You know, when you're hanging out with your friends and they have like an awkward little spat with each other and you're just kind of sitting there in the background sipping your wine or tea and you're like, so nice weather we're having today. That's how you're going to feel when you read these books because the tension and the bickering is off the charts. Okay. I love the banter. The Kane Brothers series, like I said, is really, really great. Those are pretty standard rom-coms, and they're billionaires. They're all the brothers are billionaires, and they find their love interests in very interesting ways. The first one, Huxley, he literally like meets her on the side of the road one night while they're walking. They go to Chipotle and then they spark up this deal that they're gonna be fake dating each other for the sake of like a business thing. Oh, and she's also gonna pretend that she's pregnant with his baby. So that's interesting. The second one, which is So Not Meant to Be, is about her sister and her getting together with JP Kane. He's her boss, so it's kind of like a workplace forbidden type of thing. And they don't like each other, so it's also kind of enemies to lovers ish in a way. They just really annoy each other. And then the last one, A Long Time Coming, is about Breaker Kane and his relationship with his friend from college and how he's been in love with her his entire life, but she's getting married, so he has to deal with that whole situation. It is so juicy. The whole entire series is so incredibly good, and it's just perfect if you're looking for something fun and flirty. The next one is the Vancouver Agitator series, which is equally as good, but it is a little different because it's a hockey romance. So if you've never read a hockey romance or a sports romance, I definitely recommend that you start with this. I started with this one too because it's just I didn't know where to start, and I saw this series and I was like, sure, I'll try this one out. Why not? And I'm so glad that I did because it started my whole obsession with sports romances now. So that series, I definitely recommend that you read. It's kind of the same vibe. There's so many books in the series as well, so I won't even get into them, but just know it's a really fun time. They're very flirty. They have are full of banter. And I can't believe I forgot to mention this, but Megan Quinn books are absolutely filthy as well. They are the funniest thing that you're ever going to read in your life, but they're also some of the filthiest things that you're ever going to read. So just be prepared for that. Some of the scenes that she writes, I don't know how she does it, but they are so, so good. Next, speaking of very spicy and very filthy, Miss Anna Huang, who is also one of my other favorite authors. I love her. I'm talking specifically about the Kings of Sin series today because obviously we all kind of know the Twisted Love series. If you haven't read that series, I want to include it on your list for romance reads for this year. But I want to talk specifically about King of Wrath because it's the first book in the Kings of Sin series and it is so good. It is an arranged slash marriage of convenience type of deal where the families are putting together these two people. Dante Russo is a billionaire. Vivian is the FMC, where her dad wants her to marry Dante, basically for the good of their family and for money. And I mean, you know the deal. They're billionaires, so they have their own reasons to do things. She doesn't really want to, but for the sake of her family, and he's not that bad to look at, so why not? And she has money, he has money. It kind of makes sense for her. So it's not really the worst thing in the world for her. However, once they meet each other, they find out that they can't stand each other. He hates her, she hates him. There's so much tension. They have to live together now. There's just a lot going on. But obviously, once they start living together and get married, one thing leads to another. And I don't think I need to tell you what happens, but it is so juicy, so spicy. It's not one of her spiciest books ever. She's definitely, the Twisted series is a lot more spicy than the Kings of Sin series, but this series is so incredibly juicy when it comes to the plot and the characters. This one in particular I love because it's not often when you read some type of romance book where you get like a very strong FMC, and Vivian is a strong FMC. She is so badass. Dante Russo's badass as well, but she's so badass. So the dynamic between them and the power play that they have is so good. And their love story is just like off the charts. Their chemistry together is so good. It's going to make you blush. Like every time they have a scene together, you're going to blush and you're just going to feel so like, oh my God. There's one scene where there's a mirror scene. I'll just leave it at that. Do with that information what you will. But oh my God, so hot, so perfect for if you're like in the mood for a nice steamy romance. Anything by Anna Huang is obviously great. Like I said, the Twisted series is great too, but the Kings of Sin series, so good. King of Wrath is the best one in the series. Fight me on it, but it is. Also want to talk about something a little bit more spicy for my girls who like a little bit more dark romance and a little bit more spice, turning up that level, turning up the heat. Praise by Sarah Kate, or anything by Sarah Kate. Come on, be real. Sarah Kate is one of the best spicy romance authors ever. I will read anything that she writes. And the Salacious Players Club series is to absolutely die for. It is exquisite. I absolutely love it. And the first book in that series is Praise. It is a ex-boyfriend's dad age gap trope. He is the owner of a schmecksh club and he's a dom. She's a sub. She becomes his secretary. I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. She becomes a secretary. She needs a job and he gives her a job basically, knowing that she is his son's ex-girlfriend. But he still gives her the job anyway because she needs money and, why not? She's also really cute. So whatever. But he's the owner of a schmecksh club, so she's around a lot of that kind of material. And he has his own type of kink that he likes. He's a dom, she's a sub. So he kind of is starting to train her into becoming not only the best secretary and assistant that she can be, but also the best sub. It is so great. It's a really, really great story. And like I said, if you're into steamy romances like that, I definitely recommend it. If not, skip. I totally understand. But I just needed to mention it because not only is it very spicy and not only is the tension and the chemistry amazing, but the love story truly is great. It is hard for me sometimes to read an age gap, no matter whether it be reverse age gap or not. It is sometimes very difficult to find some sort of relatability or find a sense of the connection and believability between the two characters when it's, so much of a gap where it's not believable. But this book does a really good job of making you believe their story and making you fall in love with their story as well. So, with that, I think that it's a really good one that you should try because it's juicy and it's just hot and steamy and like I said, really really great story that goes behind it as well. The Chestnut Spring series is another one that I think every girl should read. Uh, when I read this series last year, it really put me in my cowboy romance era. I didn't think that I was going to love a cowboy romance book as much as I do. But these cowboys, the mouth on these cowboys, ye freaking ha, okay? Ye freaking ha. Who was going to tell me that cowboys of all characters is like the thing? Who was going to tell me? Honestly, I had no idea that I was going to pick up a freaking cowboy romance and I was going to love it so much. It's delicious. The first one is flawless. There's what, 4 or 5 books in the entire series right now. I still need to read the very last book in the series, which I think is, what is it? Reckless? I need to cheat. Hopeless. I remember that. It's flawless, hopeless, powerless, reckless, hopeless. Oh wait. Anyways, doesn't matter. I got the order all wrong. But the first one, flawless, is specifically what I want to talk about today. That one is so yummy. Rhett Eaton. That man, I cannot. Rhett Eaton and Summer is another one where, like, at first when I started reading the book, I didn't know if I was going to believe their love story and if I wasn't sure if I was going to believe like their whole dynamic because it was a little bit too fuddy-duddy, I guess. I don't know. She was very sunshine. He was very grumpy. And I was just like, maybe it's a little too obvious, but no. Their love story unfolds so beautifully. Elsie Silver writes beautiful spice, such good spice. And I mean, every single brother, if you decide to continue the series, every single brother just gets better and better. And it's just such a delicious story. And the amount of like mental health representation that's in there as well, and a lot of like just issues that they touch on, it's just a beautiful story and a beautiful love story that they have, and it's great. I love it. It's such a fun read. Good for spring, good for summer, good for all occasions, honestly, but especially for February, for the month of love. We also have, lastly, I want to do one more dark romance for you guys because I know that there's a lot of people who like dark romance. The Queens and Monsters series by J.T. Geisinger. This is another one where it's hard for me to sometimes find a lot of relatability and a lot of believability with the relationships and with the FMC and the MMC, especially when it comes to dark romance. A lot of time, I'm not a huge dark romance girly. Every once in a while, I'm in the mood for something a little bit more dark and a little bit more taboo. But it's often that I'm like, all right, it was fine. But like, I don't know. It wasn't really believable, you know? I feel like in the Queens and Monsters series, although it is pretty dark and obviously check your trigger warnings before you read it and whatever, but you know, all of the stuff that happens, put that to the side. In spite of all of the craziness and all of the darkness that happens in those books, despite all of that, I really believe all of the stories and the characters are so easy to fall in love with. And the way that, they have a lot of the forced proximity really makes you feel more intertwined and more immersed into their love story. So if you're looking for a good dark romance with a believable plot and believable love story, I think that these are honestly going to be really up your alley because they are just very something about them is just very compelling and it's very easy to consume, I guess is probably the best way to say it. So really, really great. I think those are pretty much all of my recommendations that I wanted to talk about. I know I've been talking for a very long time and that's a lot of stuff to write down. If you haven't read any of those before, definitely recommend that this is the perfect time for Valentine's Day and for the month of love to read that. To read any of those. If you have already read them, why not reread them? Why not listen to them on audiobook? Why not just consume it again? Get back into the spirit of love and see what it does for you. There's a couple of other books that I want to try and read for my TBR for February. That is, I'm looking at my bookshelf right now because there's too many. I'm just going to name like 3 of them. Ready or Not by Cara Bastone. I am someone, I forgot to mention this in my hot take video like last week, but I am the person, I'm super guilty. I love the pregnancy trope, okay? I don't know why we have so much beef with it. I really don't. I love it. I eat it up every single time. I'm going to be so honest with you. And I know that that book has that and I'm going to eat it up. I already know. I'm sorry. I don't know why we have so much beef with it. I don't. So I'm looking forward to reading that. I want to read another Mia Sheridan book, maybe Grayson's Vow. I've been hearing a lot of stuff about that one online. So I might want to read that. Also, The Dead Romantics by Ashley Poston. I started reading this book such a long time ago and I DNF'd it. I don't even want to say I DNF'd it because I was only a couple pages in. It was barely a DNF, but I really want to read it. And I feel like it'd be perfect for this time of year. I don't know. I'm just drawn to it. Also, How to End a Love Story by Yulin Kwong. Is that how you say it? Yulin Kwong? I'm so sorry if I'm saying that wrong. But How to End a Love Story. I've heard a lot about that last year. It was like a really popular book last year. Everyone was talking about it. And I bought it when I saw it in the store, but I haven't read it yet. I have absolutely zero clue what the book is about, but I'm very excited to read it. I feel like it's going to be a really good, like, love story, maybe something that's going to really put me in my feels, you know what I mean? I also want to read the If We Ever, or like, I think they technically call it the like Love in Shanghai series by Anna Huang. Is that what it's called? I think that's why I saw it at Barnes and Noble. I really want to read that. There's four books in the series, something like that. I've heard the audiobooks are really great, so I really would like to listen to those. And I want to read Funny Story by Emily Henry because I haven't read it yet. I've had it since it came out last year and I haven't read it. I've honestly only read like 2 books by Emily Henry before, which is Happy Place and Book Lovers. I have all of her other books, have not read them. So maybe this is the time to, I think I want to read Funny Story by her in this month because I feel like it would be a really good romance book for the season. But yeah, so a couple of other ones that are on my docket, maybe Not in Love by Ali Hazelwood. I haven't read that yet, but lots of other ones that I kind of have on my TBR. Those are just a couple to mention. Let me know what you guys are going to read in this month. Hopefully some of the ones that I recommended to you. If you do, let me know what you think of them. If you've already read them, let me know what you think of them. And give me some recommendations on some books that you love that you think that I will love for the month of love. I appreciate you guys hanging out with me today. Thank you so much for tuning in. We're going to put a bookmark in this chapter today, and I'll see you guys in the next chapter. Bye.